Welcome panel for this panel discussion. We have a distinguished panel, the LP side, from GPs, from the technology side. So the first question essentially is, Rohan, to yourself, and given, I think, your vantage point at Intralinks, what are the new innovations and tools that you're seeing that are being leveraged for conducting due diligence in the current environment? Any learnings that you can share with the group here? But along with that, I think, given the fact that we are doing so many things digitally, what are the learnings from a cyber standpoint, from a data security standpoint? Over to you.
Right. Firstly, good morning, Alok. It's a pleasure to be speaking on this panel today. As SS&C, we're global technology partners, when it comes to data room providing, for private equities and VCs across the globe. And it's certainly been an interesting year for us in 2020. Remote due diligence was a massive adjustment to make. So selecting the right kind of technology for the video conference abilities, as well as sharing data, via cloud services and platforms became extremely crucial. So what we see here is that GPs not only had to look at, data security aspect, they also had to look at the operational efficiency of these kind of technologies that they had to onboard, and that too very quickly. It also had to be user-friendly and have some kind of an interface which was very easy to maneuver for the LPs as well as the GPs aside, for the communication to continue, in fact. So this is where we saw that virtual data rooms actually played a very significant role, especially for the remote due diligence aspect. So data rooms enabled the secure file sharing, and they also went beyond the GP's firewall. That when you go into the different geographies and internationally as well, you have to make sure that it's encrypted before. The data is all encrypted and then decrypted once the user has to actually review these files as well. So a lot of advanced access controls are required and data encryption. And with this kind of technology, GPs didn't really have to worry about any security breach. So certain enhancements that I can highlight, what actually were used in data rooms as well to be leveraged to make this process a lot smoother. The first one would be, the integration with video conferencing abilities. We saw that, video conferencing platforms such as Zoom, etc., also had, management presentations and the on-site visits all recorded and to be shared later on in a secure platform was really important. In the absence of direct meetings, this became an extremely crucial aspect for the GPs as well. So a lot of GPs also actually use these platforms, even to share their AGM meetings, etc., because everything happened virtually last year. One more thing is data rooms generally enable the GPs to monitor and control the flow of their information to the right person. So the platform features such as, inbuilt platform features are more important rather than using third-party plugins. Whether you have redaction facilities on the platform, whether you have Q&A facilities over there, so that you don't have to use risky emails and third-party plugins, as I mentioned. Artificial intelligence is another area which came in handy, basically to optimize the buy-side due diligence aspect of it. This basically ensured that critical documents were not missed out during your deeper due diligence which had to be conducted. And all of this made it very seamless and optimized. One more thing I'd like to mention is that new fund managers found it extremely tough compared to the existing and larger fund managers to get across to the potential LPs and to be able to share their communication and fund strategies as well. So they use certain fund marketing tools to collaborate with these placement agents and securely reach out to the potential LPs regarding their marketing content as well. Now, it's interesting actually that you mentioned the topic about data security and cybercrime. And also, using portable cameras became very evident in this kind of a world. So we saw the GPs across the globe were conducting on-site visits virtually now, and it picked on very quickly. So in some places, we even see the use of drones and, high definition videos on site, which were actually captured and then shared across as well. See, in the end, I'll say that where your data is stored is typically what matters the most. And even GDPR regulations make this abundantly clear. And this heavy dependence which we had, on the internet now made the sensitive data a lot more vulnerable to spoofing and phishing emails and attacks from these malicious elements. More so to the private equity and VC universe, as they house a lot of confidential information as well.
Great. Thanks, Rohan. I think good insights, especially in this environment. I think let me just move on to Dominic, given your vantage point sitting out of Hong Kong. You've heard Rohan in terms of, I think, the tools that are being used, I'm sure, from a cross-border, not having feet on the street in India. How are you managing in terms of from your diligence needs and and for how is it posing a challenge from a cross-border standpoint?
Yeah, thanks, Alok. And maybe just to set the scene for the audience, maybe just a couple of words on just Harbourvest, if you don't know us. So just, global private equity investor, clearly been on the ground, for quite some time, out of Hong Kong. We work with our general partners and, investing into India and other Asia markets as well. So across sort of primaries, secondaries, and obviously co-investments as well. I think, you mentioned, you said it right? As a cross-border investor, we don't have presence on the ground per se in India. And so, pre-COVID, for we've always relied to some extent on phones and video. Clearly there was always the preference to meet someone obviously face to face and all of that. But we couldn't do it 100% of the time, and so there's some reliance on that technology. Now with COVID and not being able to travel, we've had to obviously very quickly further adapt how we undertook our diligence. What I'll say is that across the three strategies that I mentioned, I think there was one common theme that really stood out, and that was really leaning on the existing relationships that we have with our general partners, that are on the ground in the market, whether that was India or any other market for that matter. But also I think leveraging relationships with the market participants as well. So not just the GPs, but you've also LPs. I guess in India, family offices have a pretty wide remit investment mandate as well. There are obviously advisors, other consultants on the ground as well. Really, it's triangulation of DD. Doing even more reference checks. I think as we think about obviously undertaking company diligence, we've been able to do that successfully, provided clearly the GP is going to be on the ground, but I think having a second pair of eyes through an advisor or other consultants as well that we've worked with before. And again, I stress this is leveraging on existing relationships and people that we trust already, has been obviously very instrumental in being able to kind of bridge that face-to-face gap. So look, it's quite fortunate that we've obviously built and cultivated these things over time. Now you've asked, I guess, the question on challenges. Now, I'll probably summarize maybe three sort of challenges I can think about. One, in terms of obviously forging new relationships. Second one is maybe trying to find smaller deals that don't get picked up by an agent or some sort of a wider process. And I think the third one is navigating complex transactions, which I think we all love to do, but these obviously require lengthy negotiations. That's covered the 2 points I've mentioned. I think the point on new relationships, I think that's where the short answer is that there is a finite limit as to how much you can do on video, because a lot of these new relationships, you've got to actually find the relationships. And that's not going to happen on a one-to-one video conference, right? And so, introductions only go so far, but ultimately, I think, that there is, I don't think that's something that at least we found a solution for through technology. So I guess despite the red-eye flights, and still looking forward to my next trip to India.
Thanks, Dominic. I guess very, very aptly put in terms of forging new relationships. I think that's better done face-to-face. You can start a relationship, but I think to cement it probably requires that kind of maybe a handshake, maybe a Rohan, something you can think about from a tool standpoint. Can you actually do a virtual handshake? I think so. Because I think this is things are easing up, but I think this could also be a new reality. I'm sure the industry is not minding not spending their lives on in the air. So I think so the new normal is going to be here to stay. But I think thanks for those insights, Dominic. It brings me to I think Sunil. I think you've given your vantage point at Adam Street. I think the kind of oversight you do and the kind of investments you do, ex-China, I think India, Australia, the whole, I think, different geography that you deal with. You sit on the boards of advisory boards of multiple private equities as well. So my question to you would be in terms of, given, I think, the fact when you work with GPs, you would need to really validate the investment strategy. You want to look at, I think, what is their investment horizon, want to talk to, let's say, their portfolio companies, the fund performance that has been there. You need to assess the experience of the team. So again, maybe established relationships, you have some of these already ticked. And I think to Dominic's point, maybe the new relationship becomes difficult to then assess somebody. But what are your thoughts on and how are you relooking at due diligence on GPs and their past portfolios?
No, thank you, Alok. Good to be here. So, and appreciate the introduction as well. Maybe just a couple of lines on the firm. So, Adam Street, Global Private Equity Investment House, and I'm based out of Singapore to cover that region effectively. And pretty global operations. We manage close to $40 billion and been in the business for over 50 years. So, a chronological advantage in certain things, and it definitely has been serving us well. Even in India, we have been investing for over 15 years. So, seen the industry and the players for a long period of time. So coming to the questions that you can just pose, Dominic made some interesting comments on red-eye flights. I don't miss that either, but the food probably made up for that. So on the diligence side, the way we look at it is that, we only do private equity and venture capital. So, there is a specialization in what we do. We are not a hedge fund investor. We are not real estate. We are not infrastructure. So there is a specialization that we have, and that serves us well because we try to, and we are dedicated in that. So we try to see everything over this period of time. And we have extremely robust IT system. Clearly anybody who's been in their business knows Intralinks, but we have our own IT systems to track these progress. GPs that we probably met in 1999, how they looked in 2000 and then a year later. So that kind of helps. It's continuous. Second, I would say that, we are very comprehensive in the way we look at private equity and venture capital as well. So we invest in funds at the start of fund life. We call it primary investment. And I'm part of the team. We do co-investments. We do some direct investments, and we also do secondary investments. And, to be honest, if you kind of look at the apple always, you kind of know what the apple looks like deep inside as well. So, we kind of build that point of view from several vantage points and get that history with businesses, histories with GPs. And even if people change their firms, history with those people as they kind of move along. Thirdly, we believe that diligence is a continuous process. So, even if you are investing in a GP today, it's very rare that we would have come to know them, today and we start investing with them today. We would have probably seen them through one fund cycle, sometimes more than one fund cycle. So, that basically gives us a lot of opportunity for formal and informal interactions. And, as Dominic was saying, we were not in India to start with, and we are a global firm. So we have a lot of adaptability on technological platforms and technological tools. And we are just kind of dialing up our game, how to use that more in this interim time period. Hopefully some days things will normalize and we'll start all traveling soon. That brings me to the point that I think this history and these interactions, and when we go to each of these countries and we are there, we maximize our time there as well. So we not only meet the GPs that we are invested with, we'll meet a lot of other GPs, many other players in the industry as well. And we attend a lot of AGMs, a lot of economic sessions, portfolio sessions for the companies that we are not invested in, and get to see these CEOs at drinks and dinners. So there is a whole lot of institutional, I would say, knowledge building that is happening in the background, when we finally decide that, okay, this is the GP you want to go spend some time with the view of kind of making a fund investments. So there is this continuous process of building that comfort over a period of time. And this also gives us a very good relationship cachet, as I call it. And that is why, I could be, I've been in this house, working from home for 12 months, and we can get onto the call and, don't need to get around, beat around the bushes with what the weather is like, and get into really tough questions and really, I would say, proprietary discussions. Looking at this, what do you think and what I should be worried about? And that really helps. If you did not have that 10-year history with those people, it's very difficult to get those, I would say, very critical and very precise inputs from them. And I would say that, the process, while we're all stuck in these rooms, has become a lot more robust as well. So, we would have actually shook hands based on certain rigor of diligence that we have done, I think we are doing +2 today. Means if we had done 20 reference calls, we are probably doing +2, +3 as well. Getting that extra input, going that extra mile. And as Dominic said, it's very easy to schedule since nobody is going anywhere. So people are available, to their families this way, almost 24 hours of the day. They can do 6 a.m., they can do 11 p.m. And, that kind of helps because we are in this multiple time zone. So I would say, we all are adapting. We started from a good base of trying to do things remotely and supplemented with in-person things. So we are able to kind of, move with that. And of course, being dedicated in this industry and being long-term and meeting these people over long periods of time definitely gives an advantage. Now, my question is, if we all are stuck here for 3 years, what that feels like. And I think that will be a scary reality. So, hopefully the vaccine is here soon and we are not much further away from meeting in person.
Thanks, Sunil. Very interesting insights. I hope your Apple analogy with nothing to do with your investments. Probably we might need full disclosure on that one later. But I think diligence is a continuous cycle, I guess. And I think that helps you in terms of in times like these anyways. And those are really the best practice. The fact that you actually work with ecosystem players, I think each one of you probably also helps. In some sense, maybe that gets impacted a little bit because I think when you look at ecosystem, you probably, with each deal, you might actually chisel it away still slightly more as well. So I think that is, and maybe people might not open up more in a digital medium than, let's say, face-to-face over dinner or drinks. So I think maybe some of that might be there. But I think, yeah, valuable insights. Thanks Sunil, for that. Which brings me to, I think, getting a GP perspective on investments, potential investees. I think let's look at the other way around. And I think no better than Ajit to give us that perspective. So Ajit, how are GPs conducting more stringent diligences on potential investees? Have you also looked at maybe potential maybe forensic diligences as well as part of, I think, doing those background checks? Can you share some of your thoughts on that front?
Yeah, sure, Alok. Just before that, I would like to supplement a couple of points in addition to what Dominic and Sunil has mentioned. These COVID time, the whole diligence process has gone on virtual mode. So what we are doing is, we try to get into the diligence process as early as possible with any potential GPs. What this helps is, if there is an issue in between in the early days, we could possibly allocate resources to other requirement. And similarly, it helps the GP as well because they can be sure early about whether somebody is committing or not committing. And we heard about the term flight to quality. What we hear now is flight to familiarity, meaning going back to GPs where you have more relationships, which has been already mentioned. But not only going back to them, but the diligence process is so cumbersome these days because of all the whatever is going on. What we are seeing is we are even talking to industry peers to get discrete and non-discrete reference checks. And, investors, some investors who are already invested with the GP or done diligence in the past, can get good insights. And we have been operating in India for the last 15 years and have done a number of funds and direct investments and secondary investments. And there is a good network of industry peer group, we can, tap on if in case there is any requirement. And coming on to the stringent, the way you called diligence on misdeeds or background checks, I would like to tell you a small story on one of the U.S. state government institution has done diligence on us, Evolvence India. The firm which has been conducting this investigation even wanted the partner's legal history. So they can even get into to that level, So basically, any kind of background checks, which has gone even more stringent these days, you look at the credentials of the key partners, basically their employment history, their education, and also their personalities, their character, and also their financial integrity, whether there has been any legal cases or any other bankruptcies or insolvency issues. So all these are looked up very, very closely these days. But in order to conduct these investigations or forensic or background checks, one has to understand how much is the money involved over here, how much you want to spend on these investigations actually, and whom are you targeting, whether the key principals, maybe 2 or 3 who are crucial to the success of the investment which you are entrusting. So basically these investigative reports entails business interest and professional history, regulatory issues, as I mentioned, and in fact even it can go to personal levels as well. In my earlier career, where I have invested with one of the hedge funds doing a single strategy, a New York-based boutique hedge fund manager. He has been doing very, very well. But when your peer group has been doing well, this manager has not been performing well. And then on Gary, we found that he is going through a severe divorce case, and he has not been concentrating. So we come up with these kind of issues, and so background check has become more and more important these days because of all this.
Thanks, Ajit. I guess these are valuable insights. Diligence as early as possible, and with the ecosystem. I like the flight to familiarity in terms of that perspective. I think that's probably aptly put as well. Again, echoes partly what other speakers also talked about. It's been an interesting discussion, talking about the tools, talking about, I think from a cross-border perspective, getting perspectives on the LP's diligence, as well as from a GP standpoint.